Welcome, Sarah. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited.
I am so excited. We're going to be talking today all about overcoming visibility blocks and really connecting with ideas if you are looking to write a best-selling book. So many things that we are going to dive into and explore in today's conversation. And before we get started, I just want to read a little bit about your incredible bio. So Sara Connell is a best-selling author and founder of the Thought Leader Academy, where she helps coaches, writers, entrepreneurs become best-selling authors and in-demand speakers. She has been featured on the Oprah Winfrey Show, Good Morning America, The View, Fox, Katie Couric, and TEDx. Her writing has appeared in the New York Times, Forbes, Quarterly, Good Housekeeping, and Parenting. Her first book, Bringing in Finn, was nominated for ELLE magazine's Book of the Year. Sarah, it's such an honor to connect with you today. Thank you again for being here.
Thank you. I'm excited for this conversation. It's needed, right?
It is, yeah. And the first question that I'd love to ask you about is, about your journey and, if there have been any turning points or books or,
Yeah.
tools along the way that have led to transformation on your journey.
Absolutely. And when I say, needed, talking about visibility blocks and right, it's like needed by me, right? I'm doing this work every day. So even though, I'm, you know, have a life where I get to be visible, more and more. It's always there's inner work with that. So yeah, you know what? I was one of those kids that really wanted to be a writer. Like I kind of felt that I loved reading and I loved making stories and writing poems and doing photography and all that stuff. And I got it in my mind that the way you knew you were allowed essentially to or supposed to be a writer and artist was that a teacher would take you aside and tell you were special. And that's how it happened in all the movies and the books I read. So I just thought like that's what's supposed to happen. And when that didn't happen, I even had a teacher picked out because he was a published author. And, that's the one who was going to say, you're going to be a writer. And, he didn't say that. And it wasn't like my writing was special in his eyes. And because of it, I didn't realize this at the time. I decided, oh, I'm not worthy of that dream. And so, and I don't know how many of us, if we were in a room together, would have a version of this, right? A parent, a teacher, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, whatever, like might have sort of suggested something. And then we let that authority voice, kind of determine something. So I went and I, read other people's work and became an English major and I got a job in advertising, which was kind of a adjunct, to the kind of creativity I wanted to do. And what happened is that job that I took after college at this advertising agency, once I got in there, I found out it was really abusive. And it was one of those that I'm so sorry for any of you listening that have gone through something like this, but it was very much out of the Me Too era. And it was really sexually abusive and it was really toxic. And I felt like I was dying when I went to that job. And I didn't know what to do because I was a single woman supporting myself and I didn't know like what else. I wanted to be a writer, but who make I'm not good enough and who can make money at that and all the things. So I was traveling back. You asked, were any books turning points? I was traveling back from a business meeting in Boston to Chicago where I lived, and they're calling my flight, and I don't have a lot of time, but there was a bookstore, and I just randomly grabbed a book. Didn't have time to read the back or anything, and I got on the plane, and the book, it was called Holy Hunger by Margaret Bullitt Jonas, and I credit that book as saving my life. I read it in one night, stayed up the whole night reading, and it was a woman who was in some traumatic experiences. She developed an eating disorder, which I also had, like as a way to deal with the, trauma that I was in. And she shared how she got well. And at the end of that book, I said, I am not doing this anymore. I'm not going to live like this. Like, even if I have to live on the street, like I'm not going to be in this situation. And it gave me the courage reading that book to quit the job and to get help for my mental. And that decision opened up everything. I decided, I'll get a side job. I'll work on my writing. Like I'm probably not good enough, but whatever. Like, what am I doing? Right. I was in like early 20s and felt like I'm going to die, from this environment. And so, of course, when we make those bold, awesome, it doesn't happen overnight by any means, but that did lead to me getting an agent eventually and a book deal and Oprah and all the stuff that, were like these life dreams. But I really do credit that book as saving my life. And I'm grateful every day, which is why I help people write books, because I know, your book is going to save someone else's life who's in a horrible situation right now. And it's why I write my own book, so I can pay that gift forward.
Mm. Wow, such an inspiring story. And it's so true. Like, it's incredible how we're guided to pick up a book or, go to a class or something like this at the very exact time that we need that medicine. And it's true. It can be absolutely life changing. And who knows, where the twists and turns. It's just in an instant, our lives can change and we can change the direction. And I love that message. And also, I just want to pick out another just golden nugget of your story, which is, that waiting for permission, or that waiting for, somebody to say you're special, you're worthy, you can do this, to
Yeah.
seeing the magic within us. How many of us can relate to that?
Yes. And I didn't, we don't know we're doing it until we really check it. Now we can all do that inquiry, if we're listening to this and having this conversation that you've beautifully invited us into, to say, am I waiting for permission? Because I believe now, I say this with my clients, I think the calling, or we could say the desire, is the sign. It's always like, oh, now I need a sign. Can I do it? Am I worthy? Does the, and it's like, if you have that calling, whether it's, for me, with a lot of people I work with, it's writing a book that they know is inside them. Other people, it could be starting a business. It could be, getting, living in a, Gulf Stream and traveling all over the country, or whatever, but that is the sign. Like, that's the sign. And I always want there to be another sign. Like, I want someone to tell me it's all going to work out and you're special. And it's like, we get to tell ourselves that.
Yes, yes, that's such powerful medicine, and it's so true. And I think I absolutely love that your calling is the sign, because it's pulling you forward. It's what is on your heart. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be easy. I think that we mistaken, like, oh, if it's a dream, if it's a passion, then
Yes. Yeah. Well, we think it means, like, if there's any resistance, that we're not supposed to. And I actually, again, in art and with my clients, it's like, we're going to see that resistance as an affirmation. That's everything going, oh no, I'm trying to keep you safe and keep you in the comfort zone. There will be resistance. It took me years to work up to the place where I knew what I was doing enough with writing to get a book published and have these opera. I mean, it wasn't like oh, I said yes to myself and then someone discovered me. No, dude, I got rejections. It didn't work. I doubted myself, all the things. But if the calling's real, which it is, we know when it is, it's in our hearts, then we will achieve it. It's
yeah.
just, yeah.
Yes, yes, it is the intention. And I think also the consistency of working towards the dream that's pulling you forward. And so, I'm feeling like listeners might be curious. I am as well. Like, after you left that job in advertising, what were some of the turning points for you to, like, really, create this huge impact that you're creating in the world?
Oh, I love that. Well, one of them came early on, which is, I know we can, speak this way here because of the beautiful work that you do, but I really was introduced to the idea that we can co-create, our reality, like that we are an active, it was, instead of life happens to me, it's the evolution to, life happens through me as me. And so one of the, I love the phrase that our decisions determine our destiny. And so I can't get there right away on my own. So I do a lot of acting as if. So I played a game with myself and I said, I'm going to play a game that says I don't have to do something toxic to make money. I'm just going to play that game and pretend like, if I really believed, what would I do? And I realized I was very interested in healing and holistic medicine and coaching. And, because I wanted something while I learned my writing craft, to be able to bring an income. And a turning point was like, I made my first vision board. And, it's like people go, oh yeah, vision boards, whatever. I love vision boards. I still do one every year. I love them. And I look at mine now, we're later in the year and I'm going, oh my gosh, it's over there. I can see all the things that have already come into fruition. And I remember I put it up there and I even put the logo of a company. I thought, I bet that would be like a really healthful, holistic place to work. And then I just did my thing. I applied for jobs and I nannied for a while, again, it wasn't some glamorous thing. And then I ended up getting a job at that exact company whose logo I put on the vision board. And it was a holistic clinic. And it was the first time I really understood like this idea of manifestation, and, that we really, and that opened up a lot, because I think from that point forward, we say turning points. It's like, I really understood, I'm the only one in the way, and that's okay. Not in a judgmental way, but just like, hey, we can co-create this. And then what happened is, once I got my first book, and I became a holistic life coach, and I loved it. And I was a writer. I had these like two worlds. I loved them both. And after my first book came out and I had that experience of really fulfilling that lifelong dream, something shifted. I don't know if you've had this, where I knew something had to, because, it's scary to let go of something that's working. Like, this coaching I was doing was paying my bills and it was working, but I'd been doing a lot of shamanic work. I just knew like this just wasn't serving something in some way. So I just went into a couple months of inquiry. I meditated, I took walks, I journaled, I did vision quests, like all these things. And what happened, this was just over 5 years ago now. I got this calling to merge the worlds. And what that looked like was to devote all of my work to particularly women who are mission driven, who have an important message or story to change the world, to make sure that they could bring forth a book, they could get on the podcasts or stages, or, wherever they really need that message to be heard, and be able to monetize that mission, to be able to be prosperous in the work that they're here to do. And that's what birthed Thought Leader Academy, which is now, the main way that I get to serve and support women. So it was like the turning points were kind of learning about manifestation, staying on the path, like dedicating myself to the writing and the coaching, and then listening when the call came to evolve. Because sometimes we don't want to. It's like, oh my gosh, that's going to be like so hard, and scary. But what's been wild since I said yes to that, when just stay in the yes, the business has doubled every year. We've been able to serve like twice as many people every single year for 5 years. It's just been phenomenal. Different countries that are working with it. I mean, it's such an incredible gift.
That is amazing. And I feel like you are speaking so deeply to my soul right now, because I understand what you're saying about that path where it feels like two worlds are
Yeah.
separate. And then how do I bridge them? There are these things that I love it. And it takes, a lot of trust, a lot of surrender to be able to really create a new pathway forward. But a lot, what you're sharing is like, there's so much, there's so much there.
So much. And it never leads us. I don't know if you've had the experience. When I listen to that guidance, it's never misled me. Now, again, doesn't mean it's a cakewalk. I've had traumas, I've had like massive inner healing to do, there's stuff, but it's like the joy that I feel and the integration. Like, I'm the same person at home as at work. I'm the same person in all areas of my work. Like, there's no place I have to be anyone but myself. And that is abundance in a form as well. Like, I have congruence. I'm on purpose. Like, so even if it's a hard day, some things happen that's hard. Sometimes you go, oh, this happened, or a team member that now that we've got 11 women working in this company. I mean, I never imagined, that wasn't ever something I could see. And they're amazing. And, if something happens or someone needs help, or it's like, there's challenges, but, my best day living authentically is better, or my worst day living authentically is better than my best day when I was off my path. I think that's kind of
1000%. And what that brings up in me as you're sharing is just, I was reflecting on this recently, is that I'm making, the same amount as I have in other points in my career. And yet I feel 200 times more abundant, because there's these elements, and I do what I love, and I get to work with clients that are amazing. And so there's so much to abundance.
Mhm.
And I think, something that you shared is so key, which is like, once you had that like aha light bulb, where like, oh, I manifested this job, like this actually,
Right.
you know, is happening. And then also recognizing that the only thing that potentially is in your way is yourself.
Yeah. It's everything. Like you said, that you're on, and even just the gift. Sometimes I really need to remind myself, intuition is a form of huge abundance, I believe. Like, the abundance of having inner guidance, or higher guidance, or however we like to describe that. I mean, I can forget what it was like to just be like stumbling around in the, trying to do it how other people wanted or please my parents or, whatever that looked like. It's just huge. And I love that you feel the richness. That's what in my newest book, The Science of Getting Rich for Women, like that's really, what we focused on is the abundance. Yes, money. I believe in people having a lot of money. I love the idea of great, awesome women, especially who are mission. I, I love it. But it's amazing because I want everyone to have a huge financial abundance. There's abundance though of love, of authenticity, of time, of intuition, of peace. That's a huge form of abundance, to have peace.
Yes. Yes. 1000%. And, I think where I wanted to go and ask you, like one thing is I feel like, there's so much in this book that I have, which I love, is really, talking about the metaphysics, the energetics of abundance, really tapping into that quantum field, which is so important. And you're really doing that in such an interesting way. And I feel like bridging spirituality and business into such a beautiful way. I'd love to hear more about your own personal journey with that and how that's
Yes.
passion of yours.
Oh my God. I love it. Well, that's why I really, we write the book that we need. Often I feel like it's like Toni Morrison famously said, if you don't see the book you're looking for in the bookstore, you need to write it. And it wasn't that there's phenomenal books on women in abundance. Of course, I just really felt called to contribute to that movement, in this way. And also because I was doing the work. So I went from struggling to make $20,000 a year, a number of years, before I did that merger. I knew I was doing good work. I got amazing results from my clients. None of those things were a problem, but I couldn't be visible. I know we're going to talk about visibility. Like I was unconsciously terrified of being visible, of fear of rejection, fear of failure, all the things. And I didn't know how in the way I was. And so I started doing the metaphysical work, the neuroscientific, the quantum work around abundance. And so I've gone from 20,000 a year to over 1 million. I mean, it's like ridiculous. So you're just like, what? I mean, I would hear people say things like they made 6 figures or something like that. And I thought, like, who does that? Like, I mean, and I thought you had to work on Wall Street and sell your soul. Like that's kind of the mentality. I had the artist healer mentality of like, well, I'd have to do this horrible work that I hate, or I can have money and do horrible work I hate, or I'm going to but do work I love. And I had a really like black and white binary idea of that. And it was been so exciting. Now I treat this, from reading the book, I needed to treat my transformation around this as like learning a language. I truly think abundance is like a language. And I was speaking the language of lack. I was speaking the language of unworthiness. I was speaking the language of I'm not capable, really that was the language around me, in me. That's what I had conversations with other people about. And it really was about like, again, if I wanted to learn French really well, like what I need to do is go live in France and immerse myself in the language. So I would read books on abundance. I would listen to recordings. I would do hypnosis, at night on abundance. I realized like I wasn't around people who were living abundantly. And it wasn't like I ditched my friends. I'm not like an a-hole. Like I'm not going to do something like that. But I said, I do need to get in the room with, particularly for me, I wanted to see women who were authentic and had integrity, who were manifesting financial abundance, because I just didn't know what to do or believe it was really possible. And so, I mean, it's pretty, you might say, oh, well, 5 years is kind of a long time, but that is like, for me, it was a quite a nice trajectory to go, 20 and then 6 figures and then mid 6 and then 7 and now multiple 7 this year. So it's really, and the money's a result, not the goal.
Yeah.
That's what I think. The money is, because I really checked in. I was like, I don't want to be an American who's like more and money and I just need stuff. But when I really checked in with my soul, it was like, you're breaking the cycle of poverty and unworthiness off your family.
Yes, there's something that you say in the book, which is when you overcome all the blocks and the subconscious beliefs, then money just becomes energy. And I think that's so, so powerful. It's just one form of currency. We have so many, but it's can be such a helpful energy to understand, to connect with. And like you said, there's so many masculine books that are out there
Yeah.
on abundance and wealth creation and prosperity. And so it's so nice to have something that's deeply rooted in feminine energetics and
Yeah.
quantum principles. And
Right. It's like we just wanted some fun. I was like, I don't feel like translating all the pronouns right now, even though that still puts it in a binary space to say for women, of course it's for all, but I love it too, right? Because we get to experience all the forms and money, some people's vision, I say this in the book, someone's rich vision could be having like a zero carbon footprint and needing very little cash, if you will, right? I really wanted a new home for our family. That was like something that involved financial prosperity. I want to hire these great women that work in our team and pay them well. So that was like the financial piece was, it has been important these years. But there's not like a way it's supposed to look, and I don't think it's better or worse. And I think that every vision, the authenticity is what's sacred, I think.
yes, and I think that's so beautiful because I feel like everyone can really define their own definition. I love the word superabundance because to me
Yes.
it's so expansive and it really encompasses all of these forms of abundance, but really getting in touch with what that looks like for
Yeah.
you. And something that you said was so powerful because it's like whatever that we struggle with, wherever there's a serious block, whether it's abundance or whether it's visibility or worthiness, I really believe that it's not just reading one book and you're like, okay, I got it. Like, at least
Yeah.
that has not been my experience. It's like, creating this divine partnership. Like, okay, abundance, like I'm here, I'm going to meet you, I'm going to learn all the things. And then, through your work, you're able to, share that forward and really, provide others with the tools to be able to create abundance in their lives.
Yeah, it's so good. I love superabundance too. Isn't that fun? It's just fun to say. It's like not even just abundance, like superabundance. It feels like superpower, which is what energy is. And you're reminding me too that all of these desires we have, like ultimately they're about becoming free. I feel like, whether it's a block around visibility or a block around money or a block around love or whatever it might be, health. I mean, ultimately it's about really letting go of the false ideas and then allowing the natural state of wholeness and abundance and all of those things to just be our life.
Yes, yes. Any like, just tips that are coming to mind just to kind of get started on that journey?
Well, yeah, I mean, I love a really simple one for just at the very beginning when it felt so unreal to say things like, I have tons of abundance when I'm like making $20,000 and not, but I mean, I am rich. It's like, no, your brain is going to be like, no, you're not, like whatever. And that feels so out there, right? So I love the technique of just starting to notice abundance in any form. So you're not saying it's anything about you. You say, well, there's a lot of leaves on that tree, there's a lot of cars in this traffic jam. I mean, it doesn't even have to be like things you're particularly happy about, just starting to see, oh my gosh, there's an abundance of like types of cars. There's an abundance of chips in this grocery store. There's a whole aisle of different kinds of snacks. Like, I mean, just starting to train our brain to see abundance because we know our reticular activating system, that part of the brain, basically will look for evidence and bring us experiences of whatever like bone we throw it, right? So if we throw the bone of I'm not worthy and lack, okay, here I will show you more of those experiences. And if it's like the bone of I'm worthy, I'm abundant, well, I really love the idea of just training our minds to like see abundance. And then I just did, as in the book, a very simple exercise. I would just in the mornings, I still do it years later, just opening the arms and just saying, I'm one with all the abundance in the universe. And just breathing that in for a few breaths. I mean, everyone can do this. It could be for 2 minutes, right? We can do this. We don't have to sit down for 20. I mean, believe me, I get up early and meditate. I'm a big fan. It's like nothing's messing with my, morning stuff just because it helps so much in how I live my day. But if that's not anyone's, just the open posture, really opening the channel to receive. And then calling in, like, what would you love? This is a little bit like, what do they call it? Like segment intending, if you listen to Abraham Hicks and stuff, it's like, what would I love today? So it might be like, I'd love to laugh today. That would feel so abundant for something to make me laugh so hard. Set an intention for
Mm.
abundance of laughter, or I want to hug, or I'd love a time with a friend, or, maybe it is a new client or a book deal, or, something else that's in that realm.
Oh my gosh, I love those tips so much. I'm going to really weave those into my own morning practice because I love the idea of heart-centered, really opening up the heart to receive, because I really find that that can be one of the greatest blocks when it comes to abundance is just our ability to receive.
Oh, right. It's scary to risk. Does anyone, I wonder if that's ever been true for you? Like it almost seems it feels so much safer to give, right? Like that feels like, oh, I know that muscle, great.
Even with compliments, I find like that's such a good example is that sometimes until we get comfortable, it's like, oh no, let me throw a compliment back or let
I
me,
know.
you know,
It's crazy how we want, oh, this, the cliched was this old thing, or I bought it at Target or whatever. And I do buy a lot of stuff at Target and I love it. It's just more like, why, instead of saying, oh, thank you, someone say, you look really nice today. Thank you.
yeah.
Or I love your smile. Thank you. Just being able to say thank you and actually take it in. It can be really like uncomfortable at the beginning.
Yes, yes. So such helpful practices. I think even making a list of all the ways that we receive
Yes.
can be
Huge.
helpful. Yeah. So I want to ask you, I want to move to some of the blocks because we're, talking about visibility, sharing your gifts,
Yeah.
really being of service in the world. And I think so many listeners, myself included, can relate to like ourselves being the biggest block standing in the way.
Yes.
And aside, it's like, I know I want to share my gifts. I know I have an important message. What are some of the most common blocks that you've
Yeah.
encountered?
Well, I mean, it's so fun in a way to get to do this work that I have the gift of doing with people, because you really realize how non-personal these fears and these, like, oh, this is everybody's. Like we think it's so much about like me or my family or it's like, no. And that was really helpful. It was the gift I got from just coaching thousands of women at this point. But one of them is like there's a huge fear of judgment. So what we think of as visibility is, if I put myself out on Facebook or a stage or in a book, it sort of opens up, like people feel like they're like open season on the firing range, people from their past, their family, people that went to high school with them, like just random trolls on the internet. Like there is a vulnerability to it. There's no doubt, right? People can criticize us, they can get mad at us, so I think one of it is really like, what will they think, if I tell this story or share this thing? And they can be, again, people from our past, people on the internet, people that we work with. Sometimes people are afraid of showing that they're spiritual if they haven't like been as much out with it. Sometimes people are afraid of talking about their past because, there might be family members that aren't painted in the best light in that way. And so I think that's a huge visibility fear, is just the, like, we seduce ourselves into the idea that it's safer to stay hidden and small. And the reason, and I did that for years, and I still can think that that's a good idea. But actually, we're not safer. We're just not, like, it's that idea that like, oh, somehow, because we miss out on making the impact we came to make. And so what I really look at with visibility, and this is the work I do and then invite our clients into, is who am I living for? Because like at the end of my life, do I want to say I kept so under the radar so that nobody was offended or mad or judged me or called me whatever they call me? Or do I want to know I left it all in the field and I brought forth, like in that big magic way, the treasures inside? And of course, at the end of my life, I'm going to say, oh my God, go for it. Like, go play all out. Like, I'm leaving anyway. Why would I, like, I'm not going to care what my sister said, at that stage. But in the moment, it's terrifying. It'll shut us down if we let it. So I really look at, who am I living for? And if I'm living for to placate people that might be annoyed or whatever, not like what I do, or am I like here to give a gift? Because I think we're all here giving a gift to each other. I
Yeah.
really do. And so that's a big visibility one, is like the, what will they, another one is, there's a fear that people will, it'll be overwhelming. Like somehow you're going to be, like maybe not even criticism, but just like there's so many people that like suddenly will want your time, or so people feel like they won't have balance, or they won't have boundaries, or, so that's a understandable fear, right? And I think, again, the antidote with that one is a lot about boundaries, or learning to, if we've never learned that skill. I mean, I grew up in a family that was like, a boundary was seen as a rejection. It was an affront. Like if you wanted a boundary in that family, it was seen as like sinful. Basically, it was just like, how could you want a boundary, and so we might have not learned. I didn't learn, to set boundaries. So we can be afraid of, if anyone has access to me and my thoughts, like I won't be okay. And so I think the healing there is, we get to be supported and loved into being able to know, we can set boundaries about what we read. I don't read my social media feed. I have a team, it's like, so if I put something out and someone's like, I hate you, Sarah, it's like, luckily, I don't think that happens a lot, but if it does, also, like, I don't have to take that in energetically. And I don't know about you, probably a lot of your listeners, like, I'm an empath. And so that feels really scary to think about, just all the energy. And so learning how to take care of ourselves, and not putting barriers up, but like protecting your energy and saying, this is what I will and will not take in. And,
Yes.
so what do you feel like sharing, like, what do you hear from people, or like what visibility fears come up?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Those ones that you just shared are so good. And I love that you brought social media into it as well, because I think there is so much energy there. And I think boundaries are important, and really just learning how to navigate it in a way that is helpful for you. One of the blocks that I hear often, I think, is a fear of rejection. You
Yes.
know, a fear of rejection, like what if I put out this course, or what if I put
Yeah.
out this offering and people
Yeah.
don't sign up, they don't love it
Yes.
immediately.
Yes. Well, it's, who wants that? It's like I'm always very loving to those fearful parts of me, because I'm like, yeah, why would I want to throw a party that no one comes to, and it's public because you've like put it, I mean, talk about terror. I've been coaching a few of my clients through book launches and course launches this week, and it's like, yeah, no, thank you. And so I think a couple things here of, you know, like, knowing that courage in and of itself is going to bring good and going to bring success. So like, even if the individual initial book launch or course launch or business launch or something isn't what we hoped in that exact moment, that it doesn't mean anything about our worth. Because where I get into trouble is when I think that means either that I'm not a good writer, or I'm not a successful coach, or whatever story and narrative am I attaching to it. Like, that's what creates these high stakes of like fears of rejection. And I think it's fun to like flip things. So like with rejection, for instance, there's a big difference between, oh, this person thinks I suck, which is what we kind of make up about rejection, versus, oh my gosh, this something better's on the way.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Now when's the something better? And then you get your reticular activating system better going to be. So it's like, there's a great line, like, we're either growing or winning. And
Yeah.
growing is winning. So it's like, there's actually no failure. We're growing or winning. And so, and they're both winning. And so just not seeing rejection as anything other, because I used to make a story about all of it.
Mm.
Like, I would send out one piece of writing, and if it got rejected, which it did, I would say, oh, I guess that's a bad piece, and I'd throw it away. I mean, it's insane. Like, that's not a good publishing strategy. Now I'll send things out 100 places, and then know that the right home, I will send this out if it's like a short story or poem or whatever, and the right connection will happen. And just, I mean, it's really empowering ourselves not to make up narratives. And the criticism one, the one I love is, this is from a mentor of mine, which was like, when he first showed it, I was like, come on, who can feel this way? But it's a really fun game. So let's say someone says, you're selfish, or you're what, they have some judgment of us. And so, internally just going, oh my God, thank you. Like, thank you for noticing. Cause usually when someone says we're being selfish, it's because we're not doing what they want us to do. So it's actually like such a projection, right? So it's like going, oh my God, thank you. I'm really working on boundaries and honoring myself. Thanks for noticing. And like, if you say it out loud, people are so confused because they're trying to like insult you or something. And they're like, why are you taking this as a compliment? And really going, oh my gosh, thank you. Or because the criticism only, it's like, there's some great line about, no one can make us feel inferior without our permission.
Yes.
and so we just take away the permission and we just were like, oh my God, thank you. Thanks for noticing. Or I hate what you wrote. Oh my gosh, thank you for taking the time to consider this. I'm excited for you to find what works for you. I really love what I did. Like we don't take it in.
Yes.
But I used to take it all in and be like, oh, you're right. I'm nothing. I'm the worst. I suck. I'll be nothing, and then just spiral.
Yes, yes. And what I'm getting from what you're sharing is really telling ourselves better stories. It's all about the meaning that we make of things, and we can really change our entire beliefs, our reality by just shifting the stories that we tell ourselves. And also, too, it's like we don't see rejection that other people experience. And I really believe that it takes showing up consistently if you're building a community, if you're really putting out there work that you're doing in the world. It takes
Yes.
time.
Well, and being in community with you and communities like you're building here, right, is so crucial for me. Like I need to be around other people who are going to remember and hold me high. And they're going to be like, that doesn't mean anything. They're going to take the pin out of the grenade if I'm like kind of in it, right? And because sometimes it's hard. Like it's hard to put something out there and feel like, especially when it takes so much and so much vulnerability just to even put something, out, a pitch or a course or whatever. And then, but to have someone go, oh, good, that just means cool. What can we learn? I did a course recently and they talked about just having the confidence to know you'll turn every. So you don't have to be scared of failure if that happens, because if something looks like a quote unquote failure, just say, oh, cool. What didn't I learn here? What can I do differently? And then you do the next thing. So you're not making that like, so I love the better stories. Do you might have heard this, but it's so bizarre and almost creepy, but there was an experiment done called the cigarette experiment. And I recently read about this. And again, who signed up for this? I don't know, but they took one group into a room and said, we're going to rub a pencil eraser on your hand for a few seconds. And then take it off. We're just experimenting with like sensory, whatever. And they took another group in a room and said, we're going to put a lit cigarette and rub it around for a few seconds on your hand and then take it off. Again, I don't know who's signing up to have a lit cigarette put on them, but people did. And they took, and they had them blindfolded and whatever. And they took one group and they rubbed the lit cigarette, and the group that they told it was the cigarette, and they blistered, because it was hot and whatever. And then they told the pencil eraser group that it was the eraser, but it was a lit cigarette, and the skin did not respond.
Wow.
The story dictated the biological response. And that just blew my mind, because it's so true. Like whatever we tell ourselves is what the manifestation, that's kind of what I took from is like, that's literally their skin didn't react.
Such a powerful.
They had a story that it was a pencil eraser.
Right.
Nuts.
Yes. Our brains are so, so powerful.
So we get to tell better stories. That's what I'm bringing that
Yeah.
into my heart, that you called that word. Yeah.
Telling better stories. Yes. And speaking of stories, I want to move to talk about writing a book. You have written several best-selling books, and not only that, you've helped, thousands around the world to help, share their stories, write
Yes.
best-selling books. What is the formula? Because in the beginning, it's like you have so many ideas,
Oh,
you want to get it out
totally.
there.
Totally. It's like, so I really like, because most of us are very creative, right? And I have at least 10 books right now that I think could be fun to write. And it really does work best typically to write one at a time, like just to be able to go all the way with it and bring it into the world. Not that there aren't exceptions to that, but in general. And so I do this fun activity with my clients called a whiteboard, and it can be a physical whiteboard or a digital whiteboard or just a piece of paper. But the idea is to first let ourselves just put every one of those book ideas like on a page, because right now they're like swirling in our heads and we're like, is it this memoir? Is it a cookbook? Is it this like journey of my spiritual awakening? We have a million things. So actually like naming them and putting them down like characters almost, and saying, okay. And then I like having everyone answer, what is my number one goal for this year? Unrelated to the ideas you just wrote down, just like, what's my number one, even professional goal, even, or something. And so if someone's really work on the craft of writing. That's what I want. Like there was a few years ago, that was my big goal. So then I might pick one of my fiction ideas, or, something really creative or really experimental. And that will be the book that makes sense to write next. Now, other times for myself or others, it's been to build the business. And so then we look at that and go, well, the memoir of my family is here, and this like book about the sci-fi book about living on Pluto is really fun. But like the book about that I take my coaching program and I turn it into the book so people can learn about what I do and then come and work with me. Yeah, that's most. So sometimes we can pick the book based on our number one objective, right? It helps discern, not that we won't write all of them, but just which one do we write next is like, what's the goal? Because it's very different to write a book that you want to be a lead generator for your business, or you want to bring in, people to what the work you do versus you want to tell a great story,
Yeah.
in which case. So I think part of it is just which book fits my main objective or the greatest impact I want to make in the world right now.
Yeah, that's so helpful. Would you recommend people contacting a literary agent and like shopping around to publishers prior to even starting the writing process?
No, the literary agents want to see a full proposal and manuscript and everything. So I would say like what I'm a big fan of and what I certainly did and our clients do is doing that work. Like we run a best-selling book boot camp that's free. We run it a few times a year. And so like doing something like that, because then you can get great free stuff online, and doing there's lots of people that teach different versions of that where you can really hone your idea, really map out, I hate saying outlining because it seems so boring and academic, but like mapping the book and really deciding, we teach a lot of structures to make the book writing process really easy. So it's not like the blank page, we teach some different strategies for like how to efficiently get those ideas into chapters and all that, and how to make it high converting if you do want to have the book bring business to you. So, working in some structure where you've got some guidance, because a book can take 6 weeks or it can take 10 years.
I was just thinking that. I'm like, there's so many stories like this book took 14 years,
Right.
I mean, and it's all
Right.
divine timing, but
It's,
it seems
it's,
lofty if you've never written a book before.
and it doesn't need to, like most of our authors, right? Again, if you're writing like a 500-page novel, like that will take you a year or more, but most of our authors write their books in under 3 months. It's really, if you have the right roadmap, you could of course take longer if you want, whatever, but if you, a lot of people I work with, like they have something they need to share. It's like in them. They're like, I have a book in me and it's been needing to come out for a while, so having a process, then really developing that. I do think it's crucial to work with an editor. Everyone who's in our company gets paired with an editor, because think about the best writers in the world have editors. None of them just write their book and publish it. They all have editors. So it's like, why would newer writers not need it? Why? Right. So I think it's really, and you can do this one step at a time. Take a free workshop or class, get a writing group together. It doesn't have to cost money at the beginning, and then if you decide, okay, I'm ready. And then at that point, when you have something developed, you can pitch agents or find a direct to publisher. There's a lot of really good presses that have started in the last few years where you don't have to go through an agent and you can pitch presses, but you get to not have to go through the 3-year process that it typically takes.
Yes, yes, those are such helpful suggestions and tools. And I think there is so much value in working with a coach or going through a program like this because you can save a lot of time and really create, with more grace and ease. So I'm curious for you personally, do you have like any writing rituals or a morning routine or something like this where you,
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, well, I'm a big morning routine person. Like I said, it's sort of a meditate or medicate, I think was sort of the two choices that so I do get up like before the rest of my household. I have a son, a husband, a dog, I get up before they do. And I do a seated meditation. I do like a 20-minute seated, I don't do TM. It's like a different style of meditation that I kind of have just evolved into over the years. I do that first. Then I do what are called morning pages. If anyone's ever done the artist's way, right? You just kind of free write 3 pages, get all the junk out of your head, all the worries, the anxieties, or like ideas and inspiration. It's just uncensored 3 pages of writing. And then I do visualization. I really do. I use a couple different techniques that where you sort of give gratitude, and I like really feel into the gratitude that I already in the moment, and then really intend, like set some intentions for the day and visualize those goals that are in my heart. And then my goal then at that point is like get really present the rest of the day. We did a beautiful breathing before we started this conversation, and it's like and then I'm someone who, if I feel like I'm a little off, I will stop what I'm doing and meditate. It's just like drop everything, hands, utensils down, like top shelf, and I'm not in the middle of a session with someone, I'll wait, but I will, I think energy alignment is everything.
Oh,
So
I have
I'll
chills.
get aligned. And yeah. And then in the evening, I mean, I do a lot. People are like, oh my God, that's a lot. But I'll do a hypnosis or a evening meditation. I mean, I do a good hour of mindset a day.
That's so inspiring. I love hearing that because it's like, just remembering, it's not like set it and forget it. We're energetic beings, and attuning to our energy is so, so important.
Yeah, and it's fun right after, so like, I don't do it to be virtuous or because it's like I'm supposed to. I just feel like a different human when I have these rituals in place. And in terms of writing rituals, I do typically do like a 5 minute seated just breath work before I write, so I can really kind of clear the channel. I'm not someone at the moment who's like totally channeling their, I love people are like, I just sat down, I don't know what happened, I had a book. I was like, that sounds awesome. But I don't have that to particular dynamic going on at this moment. But I do feel like when I can tune in, I kind of plug in, and then I really just sort of get into the energy of like, who am I here to serve through this writing, and like really bringing myself notifications and turning, it's like so easy to get interrupted.
Oh
So
yeah.
easy to go, oh, let me just check. And I'll watch myself do it. I'll be like writing, and then I'm like, oh, let me see who's texted me, and it's like, you don't need to look at that. You know what? I know it's such a racket, but I do it. And then I'm nice to myself, forgive myself, and get back to it. But and I do make commitments. I use accountability. Like I have a writing group, I have a coach, I have an editor, I don't mess around because I'm stuff will happen. It'll be easier to order groceries or answer emails or, mess around with the dog, or even though that's fun to play with my son and my dog, like I still have time for them, but I really schedule the writing and get accountability with it. The
Mhm.
only way I get it done.
I think that is one of the greatest gifts of working with a coach is that accountability piece, and just building in the time to really accomplish your big goals. And thank you for sharing your morning and evening routine. It's so fun to have a glimpse into your world. I forgot to ask you in the beginning, do you happen to know what your astrology is?
I know much less about astrology than like the Enneagram or some other modalities, but I do know that I'm a Pisces, like in terms of where my birth sign. And then I don't know, it's like terrible because I had a reading before and I don't know, remember like rising, and I feel like I have like Virgo and Gemini, which the Virgo makes sense because I'm sort of type A about certain things. But I'm much less informed about astrology than some other even though I love it. So yeah,
Oh, well, Pisces sun, that's beautiful. The
yeah.
creator, mystic
Right. The
artist. And
psychic, the creative, the like, I definitely like, I remember getting a reading. My friend got me one for my birthday one time, and it said something like, you should never, ever, ever, ever. And they had like 10 evers work for someone else. It's basically like, you have to have freedom. You have to build. I was like, okay, good thing I chose entrepreneurship at this point.
totally.
So I think, yeah, it's so fun to know these things about ourselves too, right? Like what is your sun sign?
I'm a Virgo sun,
Oh,
Virgo
yes.
rising, Pisces moon.
Yeah. Oh, I have a lot of best friend Virgos, so we get along really well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's great stuff. Right. And and I think uh, again, bringing in, you live an energy forward life, it's kind of like energy first. And
Yes.
then it's like, get in the vortex first, then take an action, get in the vortex first. Then like, if I'm going to even email a client back or follow up with a call, someone who's considering working with our company or something, it's like, instead of just slapping that together, like just really like tuning in, first getting my energy centered and then getting into an energy of service and then replying, it just makes such a
Yes.
difference.
It does. And that's why I've loved this conversation so much, because you have shared so many energetic practices as well as practical tools to really help us move forward, be visible, go for our dreams, write a best-selling book if that's what is on our
Yes.
hearts to do. So thank you, thank you, thank
Somebody
you.
too
This
can
is
go. Yes. Well, thank you for having me. I'm sorry it froze there. I interrupted when it like static. Just and everyone too. We talked about like favorite, hypnosis things and recordings on the Science of Getting Rich book portal. It's all completely free. You can download, like I have like a best of, it's almost like a playlist of different like my favorite audios, abundance, for people that want to do that immersion technique. There's that whole playlist is there, and a whole bunch of other like guided meditations. So if someone's like, I don't want to have to sit in silence for 20 minutes, that doesn't work for me. Anybody can go on there, and they're all just there for you at no cost, and you can just grab them. So yeah.
awesome. And what is that URL again?
Yeah, it's The Science of Getting Rich for Women, like just all lowercase, all one phrase, .com.
.com.
So really easy.
Awesome.
Yes.
We'll have
Yeah.
that in the show notes. And I also wanted to ask you, you mentioned like book programs and,
Yeah.
containers like this. Do you have anything like that that's coming up that listeners who feel called can participate in?
Yes, what we're gonna have is we'll have at least one more like day-long boot camp, which is they're so fun. It's like always such a great time. If you want to just like we talked about today, really map your idea and get some momentum. That's going to be coming up, I believe. I'm going to just check the date right now. We have one in November and one in December. So what I would have everyone maybe do is just, if you even go to saraconnell.com, I'm Sarah without an H. You can just grab any one of like our freebies or get on our list, and then you'll get a notice. All those trainings are free, and you'll just get an invitation and you'll get a Zoom link for anyone that wants to come. So that's the best way, because then you'll get up to date, what's happening on which days. So I don't want to give someone the wrong day. We had some schedule
Oh,
changes.
beautiful. Okay, so we will link to both of those. So many
Yeah.
great resources and tools. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your heart, your wisdom. This has been such an amazing conversation.
Thank you, Emily. It's brightened my day and I feel ready to go. I'm like, I want to go right now. You've inspired me. So thank you.
Oh, awesome. Listeners, if you've enjoyed this conversation, please share it with a friend. Somebody who will benefit. And as always, I'm sending you so much love and gratitude. Look forward to connecting with you next time.